I was born in Pretoria, South Africa in 1994. Pretoria is one of our capital cities, but it's quite hilly and small. And soon after that, we moved to Cape Town for my dad's work, and that is where I took my first steps. And I walked 20 steps at once when I first started walking. So we went back to Pretoria, back and forth from Cape Town. And then in 1997, in winter, we moved to Paris for my dad's work. This is my attempt at drawing the Eiffel Tower. Okay, so I was really young when we moved to Paris, a few years old, and I remember lots of things about Paris. Lots of French books, French food, and one funny story I remember of my brother is that we were walking by a public lake or like a little dam, and he fell into the water in the middle of winter. After that, we heard we were moving to Pakistan. So the plastic bag there, in Afrikaans, plastic bag is a pakkie. And Pakistan, me in my infant brain, I thought was like country of plastic bags. So in August 1998 until September 2001, we lived in Pakistan. And I spent my primary school years there in Islamabad. I remember the beautiful mountains, the K2 mountain range, beautiful precious stones, colors, the spices of the markets there, and of course the heat. So after school, my mom would often give us these little Ziploc bags full of ice so we could suck on the ice on the way home. In Pakistan, I remember I was obsessed with ladybugs and bunny rabbits, and I was there up until about grade 2. I had just started grade 2 in 2001. And Pakistan was really a time of learning about creativity for me. I had so much inspiration from all the beauty around me, the bangles that the girls wore there, the beautiful fabrics and patterns, and those will forever have an impact on my life. Chicken and food. The way they slaughtered chickens there and the dirt and rocks and stuff we found in our rice, not so pleasant. So, as you all know, in 2001, 9/11 happened. My dad was watching the news unfold on the TV with shock, and I think I remember my mom and I walking in, and my dad said, "Okay, I give you guys 2 guesses. Number 1, aliens have invaded the Earth, or number 2, the Twin Towers in New York have been attacked by terrorists." We eventually found a bomb under our school bus after our school went through a lot of bomb drills, and my school ISOI was closed indefinitely, and we had to evacuate the country in September of 2001, and my dad stayed over until December 2001. So in that period of time, my mother and my brothers and I lived in Durban, which is known for its beaches, hence the umbrella. As you can see from the confusion and the angry face, I was not very happy to be there. I had just joined 2nd grade again in a school in Durban halfway through the year. Everybody had their groups of friends, and I didn't understand the culture, I didn't have friends, and it was a very confusing time in my life. Eventually, after Durban, my dad came back to South Africa and we moved to Pretoria, and I thought, maybe this could be home. I spent a lot of time in our garden and nature, and I read a lot. I really started getting interested in books, and I was a total bookworm. So this was about grade 2 again, until grade 4, which I went to school in Pretoria, South Africa, and that's a pen on the side there to indicate that I love drawing. So in February 2004, we moved to Dubai. This is the Burj Al Arab and some sand dunes and a camel. So when we just moved to Dubai, my school was literally in the middle of the desert. And eventually, Dubai developed, and when we moved away from Dubai, it was not in the middle of the desert anymore. So I went to an American school, which is where I picked up my funny international accent. And I had some tough times in middle school there. overall, it was a good experience, but I do remember spending some lunch breaks in the toilet reading books. And eventually I was like, I don't need to go to the bathroom during lunch. I will just go to the library. And at the library, I started researching a lot more about design and art. And I started doodling a lot better than this, these little monsters and intricate patterns. And that's where I started doing commission drawings for friends. And then I started getting into fashion design. And I thought it was my life goal to become a fashion designer. I would sketch these models, and I did 2 fashion design courses. And I'd always buy fashion magazines in Dubai, but they would censor them because it's a Muslim country, so you wouldn't see much. They would censor them with black markers. So in 2008, to my sadness, our time in Dubai came to an end, and I moved to South Africa, which was a very confusing time for me. I didn't know where home was, and I was back in the situation of finding it really hard to relate to my peers. I had different worldviews, different experiences. I hadn't grown up in the country. So from my primary school in 2004, I saw some of my friends in my high school later in South Africa. But because of the years that are different, they were a lot older than me and in a different grade, and our friendships didn't really last. So I immersed myself into art, design, and French, and I spent a lot of time drawing and studying languages. I think it was around 2009 that I started learning Korean with my mom, and obviously I started listening to K-pop, and I just became completely obsessed, I guess, with Korean and, of course, languages. So at that time, I could speak English, Afrikaans, French, a tiny bit of Urdu and Arabic, and then Korean was new on my list. I remember once I was searching for a Korean band called Mut, and then a song that came up was in Vietnamese, because Mut means number 1 in Vietnamese. And I listened to the song and I was like, what is this weird language? So I started learning Vietnamese, and this branched out into a lot of other languages. So during my high school years in South Africa, I purchased a ton of language books, and I just fell completely in love with language learning. In 2009 or 2010, I think it was the end of 2009. No, 10. I can't remember. Anyway, I went to Korea for the first time. It was my first time traveling alone, and it was winter. And I just remember being completely blown away by the culture, the fashion, the music. I was on cloud 9 when I was in Korea, and that really spurred me on to keep learning the language and working hard. 2012, I finally finished high school. I was super happy to be done. And I thought, well, how about I apply for a scholarship, 장학금, in Korea? I sent out the application, the test application. And then later that year, they said, well, sorry, we've taken South Africans off the list of eligible countries. And I thought, why is this happening to me? Everything seemed so promising. So option 2 was to go to university in South Africa. So I started my course in information design in 2013. And during that year, my first year of university, I entered a competition where I made a video about Korea, and I won a ticket to go to Korea again. And that time I was on Arirang TV, and my friend and I filmed a TV show there. And of course, that only did good things and boosted my love for Korea even more. I'm counting years here. So between 2013 and 2016, I studied information design. That is my terrible drawing of Photoshop or something. And of course, my obsession for Japan grew because my parents moved to Japan in 2013. And in December of that year, I was finally able to visit Japan for the first time. I remember walking to Roppongi in the middle of the night and just being blown away by all of the lights, Japanese food, Japanese culture, and of course, Japanese design. I was absolutely fascinated by Japan. It blew me away. Oh, what am I drawing here? Oh, these are books. So I started getting a lot more interested in デザインの本たくさん買った means I bought a lot of design books in Japan. So my bag returning to South Africa was always full of like a ton of books and a little bit of clothes. And I repeated this process multiple times between 2013 and 2017, as I was blessed enough to be able to visit Japan multiple times. The thought crossed my mind that I should do my internships for university in Japan. So I sent out my portfolio to a ton of companies, and I eventually got some interviews, and I was accepted for some internships there over the span of 2 or 3 years. 2 years, I guess. And that is me at a desk working in Japan saying, これだ! As in, this is it, this is life. Like, I want to work in Japan. This is my absolute dream. Then in May 2016, I was back in South Africa with a Japanese friend of mine, actually, and we were looking at the night view. We were, on a hill, looking at the view of Pretoria city. That is my car. When somebody jumped up from under the cliff and approached us with a gun. So it was an armed robbery. My wallet was stolen, my phone was stolen, my ID was stolen, and my sketchbook was stolen. Obviously, this brewed a hatred in me for the country, and I thought it was very unsafe, and I was convinced Japan was the only place where I would be happy. So I was talking to a friend one day, a really close friend of mine who I consider my second mother, and she asked me, why do you want to work in Japan? Is it because you love Japan or hate South Africa? And I said, it's because I hate South Africa. And she said, well, God's going to keep you in South Africa for longer. 2017, I graduated university and I was like, I'm going to Japan. So before graduation, before finishing university in the summer of 2017, I did a lot more interviews in Japan, but unfortunately I wasn't accepted for any jobs in Japan. They said I needed experience. However, later that year, I was contacted by a company in South Africa and they asked me to work for them. So my friend was right, God was going to keep me in South Africa for much longer. So I got a nice little apartment in Johannesburg, and I started getting more independence and freedom, driving myself to work, and I'm really happy at my job here in South Africa. My first year of working, which was actually 2017, not 2016, I had a lot of stomach problems. Yeah, that year is wrong. So in 2017, I went to the hospital where they inserted a camera down my throat and up somewhere else. And under anesthesia, I was very confused and I woke up speaking Korean. My friend recorded me and I put the video on YouTube. More as like, why am I speaking Korean? This is a weird linguistic thing. It went viral in Korea, got over 3 million views. And that really boosted my confidence to start to keep going with YouTube a lot more. So I made a lot more videos, and my channel grew from 2,000 subscribers to approximately 30,000, which I'm nearing now in a year. And I've really met super cool people on Instagram, the language community, the Study Blur community, and it's been such a blessing to be able to talk to you guys and share my love of languages. So thank you guys for doing this journey with me, and you guys mean a lot to me. So this is the beginning of the rest of my life.